Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I started to ask, should I wait on the bell? And the bell was waiting on me. So we're going to start here. We're going to finish the 21st chapter of 1 Samuel and begin the 22nd here just a moment. Okay, we'll bow and have a word of prayer here. Our almighty, divine Father, how great is your name. You're the only God of heaven and earth, the true creator, sustainer, and judge of our lives. Now, Father, this is your day, and we are grateful. We're proud. We're blessed to come together in your name to worship you, to sing to you and praise you and to thank you in remembering all that you have done for us through your Son, through all of creation. Our Father, we pray that as we enter into this hour of study, that we will have the right frame of mind, open mind, a good heart, that we can take these things and help them to equip us to be better children of yours, walking closer with you and having heaven in our sight. Please forgive us when we fall short, and we ask that you will be patient with us. Through Christ we pray. Amen. Okay, before we begin the class here this morning, I'm going to tell you a brief little true story. Right after I left El Cajon in 76, 77, I went to live with a highway patrolman. The congregation in Winslow, we had 2 highway patrolmen, 2 firemen, and a city PD. There were 7 of us, and when something happened, everyone had a pager back in those days, and the call went out, and half the church would empty. The patrolman that I lived with, he was the sergeant, and he told me that just before I'd moved up there and stayed with them in their little garage apartment, that the Dodgers had just won the World Series. And one of their players, I don't remember his name, he was a utility player, they were leaving L.A. and they were going back east after the season to see the family, and they stopped between Winslow and Flagstaff at one of those curio shops, the used to be called the Running Indian. It was Twin Arrows, where you go, you get candy and food and etc. and gas. And he stopped to go in to pay for the gas. And while he was inside, an escaped criminal jumped into his car with his wife still in it, and it was still running, and he took off. And he came out. He just saw his car taking off and didn't know what had happened. About a mile or 2 later down the road, he stopped and dropped the wife off, because the moment that she realized what had happened, this guy had just hijacked their car and was taking her who knows where, she began to behave as if she was having an epileptic seizure. And she just went crazy all over the car and all over him, and which was obviously a very smart thing to do. And after about a mile out, he stopped, opened the door, and kicked her out, which saved her life. They caught the guy later. And that made me immediately think of 1 Samuel and chapter 20 here, 21, where we pick up with David is now on the run away from Saul. We studied where Jonathan told him, if my dad wants to do you harm, I'll give you the signal. He got the signal. He said, you better take off. You were right. Dad does want to kill you. So we're going to start with verse 12 of chapter 21. And we read, now David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them, feigned madness in their hands, scratched on the doors of the gate, and let his saliva fall down on his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, Look, you see the man is insane. Why have you brought him to me? Have I need of madmen that you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? Well, get rid of him. First verse, next chapter. So David therefore departed. Smart move. He just walked into the nest of the Philistines. Achish, the king of Gath. They hate David. They've tried several times. They know what Jonathan had done and Saul had done. Now they had heard the song, Saul has killed his thousands, David his tens of thousands. David realizes, I'm in a tough spot here. He just began to behave as if he was a madman. And that's an interesting thing. That's happened before in world history and other places. Maybe you've read about that in your history lessons, that a king is not going to house a madman because that belittles him. That makes him smaller. I mean, oh yeah, you've conquered this man and he's not even himself. So David knew that dynamic, and so he slipped out of the immediate danger of the Philistines. Smart move. Now, I'm not sure where he learned that, how he got that, if the Spirit of God led him to that. But that's what he did, and very simply and quickly he got out of the hand of the Philistines. But he's not free yet, because here now he is going to be on the run from Saul. Let's read just a few verses, and we'll make another comment here. Verse 1 of chapter 22. David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, everyone who was discontented gathered to him. There's a sermon, I preached that one time many years ago when I was younger. These are the kinds of men that gathered around David. And that became his army, because you'll notice it says, so he became captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. So David is already putting together an army, and this army is made up of these men who are the disconnected, who are not happy, who are troubled, etc. And it is to David that they come. Isn't that ironic? That maybe they heard the story of how he behaved in Gath. I don't know how that worked. But these men became fierce warriors and became loyal to David till the day they died. And from this group, David is now on the run. Now, I'm going to add another thing. We're going to see David taking care of his family here. But David is going to be on the run from Saul and the Philistines for some time. When Dewey and I were able to go there that one time into that region, Bethlehem, as we have noted, Jerusalem had not been established yet. There was just a little village, Jabus, but Bethlehem was the main city. That's where David and his family were from. If you go south of Bethlehem and then east of Bethlehem, you're going to get out into that desert, and go east runs right into the Dead Sea. And it is over there in En-Gedi, somewhere around that region where the caves are. And speaking of, David is hiding in this cave where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, when we were there, the thing that impressed me first was that how much this place reminded me of Palm Springs. You've heard me say before how the topography has quite a extraordinary parallel between the region here just east of us and north of us. That whole region of the Dead Sea, Palm Springs, the desert down there, the desert above, the Chocolate Mountains over to the east of the Dead Sea. It looks like that, and there is a little canyon there where they found these scrolls that there's some palm trees in, just like Palm Springs. And if you know the history of that, that's where the Indians found their water. And you go back there, and it's just like that. During my early years when I was riding a lot with my friends, we rode all over that place, all over around the Salton Sea, north of there, up to 90, up to I-10, north of there, all the way up into the Mojave Desert. Every one of those mountains. We got lost 2 or 3 times, loved it. We said, let's just go out there and get lost because we want to explore and see all these. There were all kinds of little valleys and caves and little places like that you could get stuck in. One time we were riding, we had no idea where we were, and it got really dippy. And boy, this is really weird, the topography. There was a big sign up ahead, but we were on the back side of the sign. We got up to it, turned around, and it said, "Stay out, bombing range for Blue Angels." And we had ridden right through it. Okay. And had all that. Now, I say all that not to tell you the story of modern day, but when we got to Engedi, our tour guide stopped and said, "Now, this is where David hid from Saul." Now, to give you a bigger picture, Saul was king. David was a shepherd boy. What do shepherd boys do? They take their sheep all over the hills, looking for water and feed, and looking down in the bottoms of what we would call arroyos, or these little canyons, and that's what Palm Springs is, one of those canyons. There's a spring there, and you can see it, and there was certainly one there. And so his point was, David could elude King Saul very easily, because Saul didn't know the area. David knew it very well. So that's how he is going to be successful when he's on the run from Saul. That's why we'll read, as you've studied before, when Saul is resting in a cave. David knows where it is. Goes in, comes out. He can slip in. He knows that place, as we say proverbially, like the back of his hand. And this is now this period in David's life when he's on the run. And it seems like everyone is against him, Saul and his army. But he's got 400 men who are with him. And they know how to hide. They know where to go. And that's what's happening right here, right now. Now, any comment or thought about that before I just kind of wanted to set the stage here. So David is not lost. He knows exactly where he is and what he's doing here. Verse 3 is where we begin. Then David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and mother come here with you till I know what God will do for me." Now this, on the surface, sounds so strange. The Moabites were the enemies of the Israelites. We know that from the past. But David now knows that his name and his family's name is spread around Israel by Saul. Saul is not going to be complimentary to David. And he realizes that he could possibly whip up the Israelites into a murderous frenzy to, we'll go get his family. And he knew that his father and mother would be in trouble. So he goes to these people who are like second cousins, Moab and Ammon, their history from Noah. Well, he goes to them and sees these people and says, "Would you take care of my parents?" I said, "Yes. Yes, we will." So David is taking care of everything, and now he's going to be on the run. Why would David be on the run? He has already been chosen to be Israel's next king. Samuel has anointed him. Jonathan knows it. No doubt the story has been spread throughout there. Why is David on the run? He doesn't have to be on the run, does he? Anybody hazard a guess? Donna?
He's not going to go to war against God's anointed.
Exactly. He will not raise his hand against God's anointed. That puts him at a great disadvantage that we would think militarily. You've got these 400 men. You've got him trapped in the cave a little later. Take him out. He's not the king. He's already been told the king's been taken away from him. You've already been told the king's going to be given to you. Why not just take him out right there? Just make it easier for everybody. To Saul's dying day, David will always respect Saul as the king and would never raise his hand against God's anointed. That's why he's on the run. He's not running away. How could we describe this? In an offensive way. He's running away in a defensive way. He's backing up. He does not want to strike against Saul. So he's avoiding Saul, not avoiding a fight. He's avoiding trying to hurt Saul. I think he knows he could take him. But he's on the run. So this is where this starts. And the first thing is, let's get mom and dad taken care of. And they do. And so verse 5, then the prophet Gad said to David, do not stay in the stronghold, depart and go to the land of Judah. Your mom and dad are going to be okay here, but don't you stay here. And it's not a matter of we don't want trouble coming. I believe the prophet is saying, you're not going to be able to survive here with what's going on. You need to leave, and you need to go. Do not stay in the stronghold. Depart. Go to the land of Judah. Verse 5. So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. Now, here is where the plot just gets sicker. It gets thicker, and it gets sicker. Verse 6. When Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered, now Saul was staying in Gibeah. That's his home. That's his base. Under a tamarisk tree in Ramah, with his spear in his hand. He always seems to have this spear with him. I'm curious about that. Did he have that same spear with him in the tent when Goliath had challenged them? I don't know. He tried to give it to David, and David, no, I don't need this. And all his servants were standing around him. Then Saul said to his servants who stood about him, hear now, you Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? Uh-oh, what do you sense here? Something smells. What is Saul up to? Verse 8, all of you have conspired against me. You know, that's the paranoia that we've seen come into Saul. You've all conspired against me, and there is no one who reveals to me that my son has made a covenant with the son of Jesse, and there is not one of you who is sorry for me or reveals to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait as it is to this day. Saul hears about the covenant between Jonathan and David, but the spin that Saul puts on it is they're conspiring together to kill me. They're coming after me, which we know that's not the reason for the covenant. The covenant is that they will protect each other. Jonathan is going to tell David if his father wants to kill him, and does so, and he says, no, you remember me and my family. I'll remember you and your family. This is a covenant between these two that has nothing to do with Saul, but Saul thinks he's the reason for everything that happens. He's the middle. He is the center of attention and conversation, and he says, you've all conspired against me. That's so typical when a person in paranoia now will suspect one, then turns around and charges everyone. You're all against me. John?
And I'm putting myself in all these people's place. Saul, you're a madman.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell you your son is conspiring against you.
right.
I've seen you throw the spear.
Yeah.
You're very good with it, but you throw it a lot.
They're all saying, who's going to tell Saul about John? I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I can see what he's doing. That's right. And so they're all just trying to protect themselves and say, oh, this is... there may be some that are thinking, you know, this can't last. When a dynamic takes a turn so extreme like this one does, where now there is death and destruction, at least harm in the way, that can't correct itself unless there is a major, major change in the source of the evil, the source of the threats, the attempts, the assassinations. That person has got to change. If he would have changed, what would have happened? You think about God taking his spirit away from Saul. I don't want anyone to think we're trying to second guess the Lord on this. And he did give him a distressing spirit, and we see how bad that went so fast. But suppose for a moment we could back this thing up and God give him a good spirit and not give him this distressing spirit. And that Saul had this good spirit, then everything would be okay. You think? What is it that we first learned about Saul? Before any of this, before God gave any distressing spirit, rewind way back to the very beginning of his reign. What was it that we learned about Saul that would make us conclude that things would not be okay, even if God did give him a good spirit? Yes, sir.
He did not have a heart for God.
Amen. That's it. That's exactly right. And that was shown in the very first episode earlier when he was told to utterly destroy the Amalekites, and he did not. And when Samuel came to him, told him, I hear these sheep, you have not obeyed the God. You have obeyed yourself. When he said, well, the people, wanted it, and I did this for the people. Everything was about Saul. He was looking after himself, self-preservation. That's when the robe was torn, and he said, God has taken his kingdom away from you. And I think that's precisely it. The basic, fundamental difference between Saul and David is their attitude toward God. Saul did not care to follow the heart of God. David did. He was the man after God's own heart. And that's why even if a distressing spirit never came on Saul, he still was going to be Saul. And he was going to do what was best for him. But we see in David repeatedly the attitude that God's will is going to be done. He is disgusted at Goliath and his own brethren that they would allow that Philistine giant to mock and blaspheme God day after day after day for 40 days. He's worried about God. He's worried about the reputation and the minds of people about God. So when he takes him out, then they said, well, you'll be the son-in-law. Who am I? I'm nobody. It's always about God, about his anointed. That's his anointed. And that, I believe, is the driving force behind David now being on the run from Saul. He's not afraid of him. What he's afraid of is having to raise his hand against the anointed of God. That's what's going on here. And David has the advantage because he knows every nook and cranny. And so we come down here now in verse 6 of chapter 22. When, this is where we're at. He says, verse 7, then Saul said to his servants who stood about him, hear now, you Benjamites. These Benjamites were fierce warriors. That's one of the things that we've noted in other studies in the past. The men from the tribe of Benjamin, they were left-handed, and they were outstanding warriors, fierce fighters. He said, now I want you to think, who is it that can give you all of this land and all of this stuff? He's saying, I can't. You need to be loyal to me. David's not going to give you this. David's out on the run. I'm the king. I have the palaces. I have the horses, the chariots, the armors, the money, the everything. I can give all this to you, give you the land. He said, but you've conspired against me. Who is sorry for me? It reveals, verse 9, there we go. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse going to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, give him provisions, and give him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests who were in Nob, and they all came to the king. They just got subpoenaed. They got subpoenaed by the king. You come here to where I am, and you're going to have to give an answer to this. Verse 12, Saul said, hear now, son of Ahitub. And he answered, here I am, Lord. Then Saul said to him, why have you conspired against me? Boy, here it is again. Everyone's against me. Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword and have inquired of God for him, that he should rise up against me to lie in wait, as it is to this day? He is still convinced that David is trying to set a trap for Saul. He's waiting to ambush him. Why are you going to be a co-conspirator with him? Why are you helping him? Why are you doing this? Ahimelech answered the king, verse 14 said, and who among all your servants is so faithful as David? Oh, wow. You see, those even close to Saul are rebuking him with this question. Among all the men that you have, who is as faithful to you as David? He's basically saying, Saul, you have got it all backwards. You are late to this party. David has been doing everything he can to protect you, to keep you. He's not going to raise his hand against you. This nonsense of him conspiring against you. He said, there's nobody like David. You remember earlier when he had gone out to battle, the text says at least twice that he behaved wisely. And when he behaved wisely, the people respected him. They were drawn to that. They saw here is though he is a young man, which to many might be a strike against him, he'll be immature, irresponsible, not making good decisions. But contrary, he's being very responsible, making very good decisions. And he's winning battles and bringing glory to Saul. The only problem is, Saul is concerned, there's more glory going to David than to Saul. I've killed my thousands, David his tens of thousands. That just sticks in his craw, and he cannot spit it out. He just can't get rid of that. Now, if some of you know what the craw is, let me know, because I've said that for years, and I have no idea, unless it's my granny's chicken that was in the throat. Now, I think that might have been. I don't know. John?
I've always, in the back of my mind, thought that Saul was embarrassed about the whole Goliath thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when he knew, as soon as David accomplished what he accomplished, I think Saul knew that should have been me.
Right.
If I'd have gone to God, so then now David just keeps reminding him
Right. Right.
of what I didn't do.
Right. I think most of that is true. The only thing I might add to that is if Saul were a normal person, yes, he would be embarrassed. But maybe there's something about Saul that he doesn't have enough sense to be embarrassed. And his paranoia takes over. Now he's striking out at everyone, even his son, that you're all against me. You're all against me. It's a sad, sad story about how his mind can become so evil when it is not filled with the Spirit of God. And that's a sermon that preachers have preached for many years, using Saul as the example. The works of the flesh, the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians. When the fruit of the Spirit is in the mind, the behavior is good. Saul did not have the fruits of the Spirit in his mind. He had a distressing, evil, dark spirit. So we see the evidence of that life. All right, so we come down here and he says, who is more faithful than David? Verse 15, did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Far be it from me. Let not the king impute anything to his servant or to any in the house of my father. For your servant knew nothing of all this, little or much. Now, however influential Ahimelech was as the priest, he was evidently, his standing, his reputation with the people was such that he was the one who would stand up to Saul. Because we're all thinking that, would somebody just stand up to Saul? Jonathan tried to, and Saul just dismissed Jonathan, tried to kill him. But maybe someone else that Saul would respect, like a Samuel. He's just washed his hands of it. He's gone. But it's Ahimelech who comes up and he says, none of us have tried to kill you. We've all been faithful to you. And he says, here we are. For your servant knew nothing about, we don't know anything about what you're talking about right here. Saul would say, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. You know, you're right. I just kind of lost my head there for a minute. No, verse 16 says, and the king said, you shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. All he is doing is just stating the truth for the benefit of Saul as well as all the other men. Let's get some peace here. Let's stop this conspiracy talk and this assassination talk right now. Saul, this is not true. None of us have been here to conspire against you. Saul's reaction is, you and all your house are dead. How do you reason with someone like that? You can't. This is what puts David in such an untenable position that he cannot win. Now, the irony is, he's already been anointed to be the king of Israel with the divine blessing of God and Samuel. So he cannot doubt what Samuel has done and what God has said. Yet it just wasn't that easy. Okay, Saul, you're out. David, you're in. Could it be that easy of a switch? No, it wasn't. We see in politics, we see in business, we see in schools, we see in a number of situations where there are all manner of personalities that are involved when there has been I hate to say the word regime, but when there has been an administration in place for a few years, you don't just, okay, we're going to wipe everyone out here and put another one in. Like what has been remarked incredible about our country, how through a voting process, one man is out, another man is in. Well, it would be wonderful if it were that simple and easy, but as we learn from history and other cases in the past, it's not that easy, because there are people left over from a former administration who don't want to give up their job, or et cetera, and you can see all of the political entanglements that comes there. And that comes in so many different areas of our life where there is an authority being replaced by another authority. Here, Saul is pulling no punches. He's just going to kill everybody. No one's going to take my throne. And it's just a sad thing. And David is right smack in the middle of it. Now, I'm going to stop here for a moment. Not going to read the scripture. I'm going to give you my 2.5 cents worth. It may be completely off the wall, and if it is, just flush it out of your mind. But if you want to just think about something, it's occurred to me before, and there are other occasions like this, but this one primarily. Had David just been handed the kingdom. Now, you think about this. If Saul came in and said, if Samuel came in and said, Saul, you're out, and a lightning bolt took Saul and he's dead. David, you're in. And David steps in. Would he be as equipped? Would he be as prepared to deal with the problems of Israel with the Philistines, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Amalekites, and all the... Had he just been handed the sword, there it is. All right, here's the keys to the kingdom. You got it. You know, take off. Like putting the keys of a sports car in the hand of a 14-year-old boy. All right, it's yours. Take off. No. He's not ready. It may be, and this is why I stressed, I'm not sure, but it may be, it occurs to me, that through this process, David is being conditioned on how to handle men, how to handle kingdoms, how to handle the reasonable and the unreasonable. He's dealing with reasonable people, Samuel, here Ahimelech, his parents, others, even the king of Gath. But he's also dealing with the unreasonable of his own people, Saul. And how is he going to get this thing to work? If he has the place to become king, he's going to have to be very diplomatic about this, yet remain true to his principles and to the Lord. Josh?
I think that theme we're talking about is, I completely agree with you exactly what you said, but I think it happens a multitude of times throughout the Bible. It happened with Noah, it happened with Moses, it happened with Joseph.
Right.
Like, you know, Moses lived with Pharaoh.
Right.
But no, go live in the desert, go be a shepherd for years.
Right.
Joseph went to jail for a while and was a slave for a while before he got to power. It seems like, if your character is built with velvet life.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I haven't preached this here, but Moses, the Sermon on Moses is 40, 40, 40. 40 years in Egypt, grew up there. Killed the Egyptian, had to leave 40 years as a shepherd in Midian. He comes back to Egypt. He's 80 years old. Now he's given the task to lead the Israelites out of Egypt into the promised land. Those first 80 years were preparing him for the last 40. That's an obvious overview of Moses' life. What we just recently studied earlier this year, the apostles. Those 3 years that they travel with Jesus, they're training. They're learning how to preach the gospel in such a way that is clear and concise, but that is uncompromising. This is what Jesus is teaching him, so that when he finally leaves, these men who at first thought, well, is that it? We've been abandoned. We've been left alone. No, the Holy Spirit said, go to Jerusalem, wait. It's getting ready to start. You are going to step in to the driver's seat. You're now going to drive the gospel. Peter, you're going to turn the key and start it, and you men are going to preach the gospel over the whole world. But that wouldn't happen just immediately. Had Jesus called Peter and John, James, and Andrew from the shores and said, you're fishermen, okay, now you're preachers, and then just let them go, they would not be prepared. They wouldn't know how to handle. They wouldn't know what to say. They wouldn't know what to do. And so it may be that in a similar fashion, this trial now that David is going to go through, where he's running away from Saul, not because he's afraid of Saul hurting him, but he does not want to raise his hand against Saul. This is a time of mentoring. This is a time of training. It's preparing him on how people behave, how they react, how he's going to control them. And he starts with a small army of 400 men. And these men are all top graduates from West Point. They're the exact opposite. They're the throwaways. They're the men that nobody wants. And that's the genesis of David's army. And from there, he will conquer the world. Now, any other question or comment about that? But Josh, that's exactly right. And Moses and the apostles and others, Joseph, as you said. Yeah, Anna?
Peoples of the land are getting to know David, a young man,
Yes,
before he becomes David the king.
right.
We've seen his principles and
That's right. When he's going out and fighting the Philistines, and then when he's leading these men away from Saul, and everybody by now knows that Saul is bad news. They're all gaining great respect for David. And that's right. That wouldn't have happened if he'd just stayed home in his little village of Bethlehem. But he's out fighting. He's out leading these men, and people know. So that by the time David would be anointed the king and become the king of Israel, everybody knows him. And they have a wonderful, wonderful period of 40-year reign there with David and God. All right. Now, in verse 16, Saul says, no, you're going to die, Ahimelech, for telling me this. Verse 17, then the king said to the guards who stood about him, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with the David. This guy is losing control. Kill Jonathan, kill David, kill the priest Ahimelech, all of his household. Now, he says to his guard, kill all the priests, because their hand is also with David. Now, that's not true. Now, it may be that they're sympathetic with David, but they're not conspiring with David. He said, because they knew when he fled and did not tell it to me. No, everybody's keeping these secrets from me. That's how he's justifying this conspiracy theory. But the servants of the king would not lift their hands to strike the priest of the Lord. This is where they drew the line. Another sermon. We may be in a situation that we know is not right, but as it continually gets worse and worse, at some point, to keep our conscience clear and to be able to look ourselves in the mirror, we have to draw a line. There's a line drawn. I'm not going to do that. This is as far as I go here. And that, too, was a very abrupt insult to Saul, that they're not going to do that. And the king said to Doeg, "You turn and kill the priest." So Doeg the Edomite turned and struck the priest and killed on that day 85 men who wore a linen ephod. Now, the Edomites, they're not friends to the Jews. Why is this fella here? He said, "Sure, I'm not an Israelite. I'll kill him. Come on, guys, let's go kill these." And they killed 85 of them. Saul now uses his enemy against his brothers. I don't know how much lower he can go. He uses the people that are the enemies of God, and they do what he wants. Struck the priest, killed 85 men. Verse 19, also Nob, the city of the priest, he struck with the edge of the sword both men and women, children and nursing infants, oxen and donkeys and sheep with the edge of the sword. They have just gotten the green light from Saul, and they're happy to go out and kill not only all of the enemies they have of the soldiers and men of Israel, but their families. This is getting out of hand, and you think, how could this happen? I don't know. I'm going to step off into an area that I have no expertise, but we just sit there in horror at how, even in our day and time, people rise to a position of authority, and for whatever reason, they are not satisfied with just the taking out of a leader of a faction that they are opposed to, but they now want to kill and decimate man, woman, and child. And they're happy to do that. And they call on other people to do it. And then they come to this country and get into the universities and call young Americans to do the same thing. We sit there and we shake our heads that I thought anti-Semitism was gone after World War II. World War II was supposed to be Warren's going, not a chance. Not a chance. Yeah, right. Yeah, we naively thought, well, that's the end of anti-Semitism. No. It just pops up in another place, another time. And then we become surprised when it's right here in our backyard. Josh?
It looks like he killed all the priests, all the cattle, donkeys, and goats, but he was willing to do that to his own people, but not willing to do that to the enemies where he lost his kingdom in the beginning, where he didn't kill the goats, he kept them for himself.
Of the Agagites, yeah. Amalekites, pardon me. King Agag, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
He wasn't willing to do that to them, but
Right.
he was willing to do that to his own people, his own priests.
Yeah.
Where's like his ego?
You don't know. He's using some foreigners. The Edomites are not Israelites. So he's very happy for these Edomites to go out and do his bidding. He may be thinking in a twisted way, I can't get my people to murder, but I can get our enemies to murder. So I'll just use them. Twisted now is not a sufficient word. We need another word that goes beyond twisted. Demented. That's just, it's unconscionable. All right, so that's what they do here. Let's play there. Yes, in verse 18, and the king said to Doeg, go do this, and this is what they did. He struck the whole city with the edge of the sword, verse 19. Verse 20, now one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the Lord's priests. So David said to Abiathar, I knew that day when Doeg the Edomite was there that he would surely tell Saul, I have caused the death of all the persons of your father's house. Stay with me, do not fear, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. But with me you shall be safe. Now, This is interesting. David says, it's my fault. Saul's the one who killed him and utilized the enemies of Israel. But David has this mindset that, well, it's all because of me. Not in any kind of bad way, but in a way that I tried to avoid this. I tried to run away so that there would be no bloodshed. But Saul just continues to stir this up, and it's my fault. It's because of me. What are you saying, David? If you'd have just stood there and let Saul kill you, then that would have averted all of this massacre? I don't think that's what he's saying. Again, here is a man speaking like a king. Saul is speaking like a criminal. Saul's attitude is, we're going to have a street fight and a brawl, and we're going to slaughter everybody. Your blood's going to flow in the street. That's the words of a gang, of a criminal. David says, this is all my fault. I've tried to stop this. I've tried to avert it. Stay with me. You'll be safe. We will protect the people. That's the words of a king. So the very things they are saying is showing such a divergent attitude between the two, that David is now behaving like a king. Now he's talking like a king. What a moment in his life. Stay with me, and you'll be safe. For he who seeks my life seeks your life. But with me you shall be safe. That is, you are my compatriot. You have told me what I did not know, what I needed to know. You've proved your trustworthiness. Stay with me. I'll protect you. I'll save you. It's in a similar way the covenant with Jonathan. I'm going to keep my word to protect you, to keep you. So by the time we get to this point in the story, Saul is clearly off the rails, as we would describe it. David is the young man who now sees that he is going to have to be the one to save the people. So it's almost as if, now this is just a guess on my part, but trying to back away from it and look at it, it's almost as if David now begins to change. There's a metamorphosis between the young shepherd boy who was the servant of King Saul. Now he is morphing over into the man who's going to save the kingdom. He was a servant in the kingdom under Saul, and that was a disaster, even when he did everything right and behaved wisely. It's as if now, just like with Jonathan, when Jonathan, I can't believe that my dad wants to kill you. And David said, yes, that's the case. It's another moment in David's life where it now comes to him clearly, I've got to be the one to save this situation. Saul's not going to do it. So here's his first great objective as the king of Israel, though he's not officially crowned yet. He's going to save the people. And ironically, he's going to save Israel from their first king. It's a soap opera, how all this happens. I don't know where Michal is in all of this going on here right now. She's the one who helped him escape. I'm not sure that she reconciled with her dad on that, because he's blaming everybody's against me. All right, any question or comment about this? Because we'll just close right here and not start. All right, Daniel's been trying to get his hand up all right. Oh, okay, all right.
I think that last comment sparked me. It's interesting how she progresses in her relationship with David that was not too far from now.
Yeah.
I mean, she saved him.
Right.
She's bummed about her dad. She's helping David do his thing. Sounds great, doesn't it? It's just funny how that progresses. I guess I say that. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
It changes.
Right. Okay, we have singing next Wednesday night, I believe. We'll have singing next day. So next class is Sunday morning. week been?
All right, okay.
It's Christmas, the time when everybody backs off and goes real easy. No, you just push right on through there, huh? Okay, all right, well, good for you. That's what I have to do. Hey, Doc, how you, bud? Hey, Janine, good to see you. It was that bad? Hey, Jeff, you feeling better? Okay. Hey, Grace. Hey, Chris. How are you, lovely ladies? Well, she's not well, but our daughter's here, so she's got to be well. She has been so sick the last few days. It's gone. Yeah, she's just so. And she's got the stiff upper lip. Oh, the kids are here. Yeah, you get. And then they leave, and she's. I guess it's. Yeah, they are. We used to be able to handle it. Now we don't eat very much because we eat anything, it gets upset. So she says, okay, we'll just cruise just a little bit. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to talk to Londo since they got back. They did okay on their trip? Are they planning on another one this next year? March? Good. Okay. Well, good for them. They got the bug. Good. That's right. Hey, Ryan. How you, bud? See you. Hey, Keith. Hey, bud. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I didn't want to take the fast time. It's all right. But what really cracks me up about tonight, not only yours, but how opposite of with Saul and using Joab. And sometime later, you have Naomi, who leaves the land of bread and heaven and travels to Moab, which is the barren, dry land, right next to Edom, which is in the same condition. I know she was trying to protect her boys, lost her whole family anyway, except for Ruth. But that's my first thought about that story. I know it's just...
It is the most barren land I've ever seen. We drove across it, and this is worse than anything I've seen in the Mojave Desert. It's just rocks. It's like a cosmic parking lot. There's nothing to be gained there. Nothing there. Yeah. Good. It's okay. Sure. No problem. Good. Yeah, they're having singing 2 weeks in a row. Christmas Eve and then the first one in January, I think it was. So, yeah. That's right. Back here.